Some of you may have read in the news, it's just a week ago, Tesla, the electromotive company, was in an index, the Standard & Poor's 500 ESG index, so the index for companies that fulfill the ESG goals. And the analysts of the index pulled them out just recently, not because they're not doing anything for the environment, but because there was so much negative press and incidents about diversity and how they treat their employees. And you can imagine, or you could read it in the press, it doesn't hurt neither really Tesla, nor does it hurt Elon Musk, yeah? Because he's not dependent on being in that index, but he was really pissed off, yeah? That he builds a company to bring the world on the road to sustainable mobility, but he drops out of the ESG index of Standard & Poor's, huh? On the social part, yeah. So, and then you can discuss again, yeah. How are they rated, those 17 UN goals on sustainability in relation to each other and so on? But I think it's good to know that the social part has a role, yeah, because it's about people. Okay, so now I'm in the awkward position that I'm moderating myself. So yeah, the next session is about AI for low budgets, and I'm very happy to have Philipp, Professor Philipp Brune, with me. We have both a history, and you're still doing it a lot, in helping smaller companies or also larger companies that want to start small in get going with AI. And we thought about discussing a little about how this may work or not work. And now I have to set a clock to stop myself, ourselves, just a moment, so that we see what's happening here without time. Okay, so starting AI. There are a lot of misconceptions out there, and there's a lot of funny stuff happening in enterprises when it comes to AI. And this is also driven in part of our industry, the IT industry. Let's start with something very obvious. Yeah? There are software vendors out there that will approach a company, tell them how great AI is, what an opportunity for their business, yeah? What great things they can do for their clients, and what they have to have is a real good platform doing their AI stuff. And this platform may be either highly performing, or it may be very well governed, so you know where your data came from and who put it in and where it came, and when you pull it out and whatever, yeah. I mean, many different aspects to such platforms. I've seen clients, big insurance companies, who had use cases they wanted to implement for their clients, and what they then did, they went on a journey to build a data lake, a huge Hadoop cluster. They bought hardware, they bought licenses, they bought consulting. They put millions of euros in this, and 3 years later, nothing was achieved. It was just a lot of IT, some funny data inside, nobody really knew what it was, and no use. So what happens in many cases that under the slogan of AI, they're selling stuff to companies that they don't need. And they burn their time, their energy, and also their ambitions doing that. This is one problem. The next situation is that that companies say, okay, we cannot do anything with AI if we don't have all the skills in-house. Yeah? It's sensitive data, working on it. We need our own people. We have programmers, yeah, we have admins, yeah, but we don't have data scientists. So we don't feel ready to do something. Yeah? Then of course, and Germany is a very prominent case, we have always discussed, yeah, we have data, but probably we're not allowed to use it for GDPR reasons. Yeah? Or It's not privacy prone, so it's not GDPR, but it says something about our products, our visions, our plans, or our clients. And we thought about processing the AI in the cloud. So, and the cloud is in the US, and well, and we have another reason why not doing anything. Yeah. Of course, you can do a lot with data and in the area of AI in the cloud. So this is another area where stuff gets stuck. Yeah, and especially with smaller companies, they're more in this. Let's wait and see how the big ones do with that, and if they are successful, then we may be able to afford it and achieve something. Yeah, which may be a misconception as well, because a large organization may be standing on its own toes because it's so complex and so huge and so diversified, and a smaller company could do much more. So, and with these preliminary thoughts about some things that can go wrong when you try to start with AI, I will put it to you and ask, what are you doing from your university role and other roles to help companies get going?
Yes, thanks. Great, thanks. So I will continue a little bit. So I'm here now as the scientific director of the Technology Transfer Center that we have at our university in Neu-Ulm, which is dealing with AI and AI-related topics in the collaboration with local industries. The idea why I'm telling you that is that I think maybe this could be kind of a one could learn from that. Okay, I'm not expecting now that a Croatian company comes to us directly, but maybe it is inspiring in a certain sense to learn what we learned from local industry. So first of all, what a Technology Transfer Center is doing, we are part of the governmental high-tech strategy. So technology transfer centers are have been founded in recent years in most Bavarian universities of applied sciences, many locations, and they're all dealing with different topics, some with green mobility and some with healthcare. And so we are dealing with AI in business context. We started mainly from the marketing, but I think that we learned very fast that it's not the main use case our industry, our companies are looking for. So we are now doing other things as well. And so basically it's about using AI, and what he said, that the companies have troubles to start, or they don't know how to start, or they start in the wrong way. What we observe in our region, which is highly industrialized, and most of the companies are larger, medium-sized companies, let's say, not large groups like Daimler, but medium-sized. But it can be also that most of these are still kind of world champions in their certain niche market. So they are very specialized. Most of it is B2B, and many of them are kind of privately owned still, maybe by families that founded them 100 years ago or so. So they are conservative by nature, I would say, to a certain extent. And if you go to them, we are doing a lot of informational. We start usually with events, with talks, with presentations, with individual contact discussions with companies. And what we always observe is that, I mean, all companies are more or less somehow interested in AI, and they all have heard of it, but most of them are still either thinking, okay, what could we do with it? Or if they have an idea, then the next step comes, what Joachim said. The problem is, okay, how to do it, and then of course there's a lot of uncertainty. And what we do is trying to provide, let's say, kind of a low barrier entrance or entry to use AI in a cooperation with the university. There are some. In Germany, we have some funding for such kind of projects, governmental funding, so companies can obtain some money if they give the money to a university to do something for them. And that's not much, but it usually is enough to get a find a starting point, but this is only applies for the smaller companies. So what we do is we do research, basic research on our own behalf, and applied research in collaboration with universities. We have scientific staff at the Technology Transfer Center. We are part of the university, so we are not kind of a company or something commercial, but we are just an outlet of the university or department of the university. Yeah, so we try to get in closer contact with companies and then really react to their needs and try to find out what we could do to help them. And I think what I listed here is just an overview what we observe. So either many companies lack ideas what you can do, and as Joachim already said, we observe also sometimes a wrong picture about AI. So the picture still is mainly, if I want to do AI, I need to build a data lake first and put in all the data that I can find. And then, okay, we have a lot of problems, legal and other issues, and it's expensive. And we start with that, but we still don't know what it will do in the end. So that's a common pattern. Another pattern is that they don't do anything and they have no clue, but they want to do something, but they don't know what. So it's even earlier in the process. And then some companies say, okay, if you want to do AI, we need a business case. Our management is only supporting that if we can calculate an immediate return on invest, which is also difficult because if you have no clue and no business case, it's hard to calculate a return on invest. So maybe they should start with some kind of prototype before. And then, of course, there's a big lack of skilled employees. So typically, companies either have data scientists, then they are lucky, but most of them don't have stuff to do it. They could either buy it on the market, but then they don't know from which company, and they might have no idea whom to ask. Or on the other hand, they could build internal capacity, which is nearly impossible because there are no people on the market. So that's the big problem. And what we do is we provide them kind of entry-level services in that sense, that we try to first of all discuss, clarify the picture, maybe address also the owners. And the typical thing we observe is that the terms are not clear. So everyone has heard of AI and big data, but they don't know what it means. They don't know which technologies exist, which different approaches exist, what you can do, what others have done. So information is also a big issue, which helps them to kind of make qualified decisions. Usually when they talk about AI, they think about deep learning or neural networks, but of course this is only a small part, or maybe a large part, but it's only a part of the whole story, and not for every case it's the right technology. Then of course they have something heard about big data, meaning that they want to have the Hadoop cluster or something similar. And of course, then to talk about different approaches for machine learning, about not only algorithms, but also different possibilities. You can do reinforcement learning, you can do supervised or unsupervised learning, you can do federated machine learning. All these things are typically not known, and also the possibilities to build applications that maybe don't require to collect the data first in a big data lake or do other smart things to avoid the data problems are, let's say, not known typically. And if I talk to them and explain that, they usually get really curious about it, and because there are some more potentials. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I mean, we need to be aware that if today at almost any university in the world, you are going through a course curriculum to be a computer scientist, you will have machine learning as part of your curriculum. You will learn this. So now think about those companies that can find some student, him or her, coming, and then starting to explain about all these different things, and telling in an organization that is typically in those companies that Philipp is describing, very hierarchical. There is some patriarch, founder, or son or daughter of the person that made the company great. That they know nothing about this, and then there is this student, and they tell them, you got it all wrong. May imagine this is kind of an obstacle that this may work, yeah? Because there's usually not trust to some person that doesn't really understand what the company is doing, coming in and is young and telling you you're wrong, yeah, about it. The other thing is you learn how to use all those techniques. So using AI isn't expensive in a way you need expensive software or hardware. Yeah? You can do almost everything with open source. Yeah? You don't need any fancy hardware today anymore. Yeah? Every smartphone today, new smartphone model has AI power, which you wouldn't dream about that you can buy 10 years ago. Yeah? So it's not about that it's impossible or that it couldn't be done or that there are not people that are able to do it on a technical way, but they need to do it if it has to become part of an organization, of a product in a very professional way. So what you will find is there's a lot of people who know how to take data, massage it a little. In the past we call it ETL, now we talk about feature engineering, and then train models and test the models with reference data if they are good. But it's not enough to do this just one time. Yeah? Like we heard from Dabo this morning, from what Cross AI built for Creation Telecom in the AI ops space, you need to retrain. You need to constantly observe whether your models are still good or they're losing quality with the new data coming from the new realities. And that means it's more than just being able to do the crafting. You also need to know about the right methodology. And these are things building AI pipelines, not from a technical part, from the organizational part, from perspective of who is in charge, yeah? Who's going to pay for this on the long run. And that it's there where stuff starts to get, well, more advanced. And it's the difference between just playing around with AI or doing something that is really enterprise ready, even for small enterprises. And there, my first message that there's a lot of students out there that can do it. Why not that part? They can do the grafting, but they never learned how to build up an organization and processes to have a sustainable use of data and AI in an organization, just for perhaps from a theoretical point. And hope you see it like that.
Yeah, thanks. Of course. No, I think that is also what we as a university can kind of mitigate a little bit. So you have the clever students. We also work with students, but the students alone, they would not trust the student to do it. So, but they trust us as a university. So what we, for example, doing is we kind of, because if they want to have or they need to have a result, then of course there's always the risk if they take a student to do it as a thesis work. It's of course cheap, but you have no guarantee that there's a useful result. So if they collaborate with the Technology Transfer Center, then we can mix these approaches. We can help the student, and of course the company might hire the student afterwards as their first data expert, because he's already or she's already knowing the environment, but we can guide them and we help them in that sense that the company has also the guarantee that we will kind of that we are trusted partners. And that's a big thing. Universities of applied science, I think we have a comparably good reputation in the region, because we also have a lot of former students now working in all these companies. And so I think it's a good thing to have the university as kind of a catalyst there to help starting the project, and then can evolve. And this is, I think, one of the things that the Technology Transfer Center should do to help to enable the companies to actually use these new things. But I would say that still we are in the beginning of using AI. So it's not that this is commodity already. It still is a lot of exploratory research or exploratory implementation that we try to get the things out in the field. And of course, the terms are, as I said, everything is mixed up. If you talk about AI, the patriarch, the founder is thinking, oh, he has heard something from superintelligence or something he read somewhere in a magazine or so. And so there, all these, what you actually can do, what you can't do, which different approaches exist and so on. This is, I would say, the first step is usually approaching the companies, setting the scene, explaining different possibilities and helping them to explore which kind of use cases might be valuable for them. So focus on the value and not so much on technology, because as Joachim said, the technology more or less is free, and as a university we also have the infrastructure, so we can help them doing the calculations and so on. So it's not that they have to buy something or license something in the first step. And that's I think is a big help. So if you want to bring AI to the field, I think making it easy and creating this kind of entrance or entry projects is the key, because that's what we experience, that there's a lot of uncertainty and doubt and also overkill, information overkill from many sides that leads to then the companies say, okay, then we do nothing and wait until someone else is doing something, and we learn it from them. That's of course a bad idea, especially in highly competitive environments.
And this discussion we're having now about how ready organizations are to start with AI has nothing to do about how they may be, from an engineering and technical standpoint, be highly professional. So I remember a story from our joint friend, Professor Bogdan, Martin Bogdan, from Martin in Leipzig. They were helping a semiconductor, people making computer chips, a semiconductor company, to optimize their production process. So not the design of the semiconductor, but really the production, which is it's a real science. It's something that is really on a world level a competitive thing, of doing this right. And they came in and they had problems with the yield. So how many chips do really work from each wafer you produce? Especially when you have new processes, smaller structures, it's always a problem getting up to the yield. And in that company, they helped with a group of students from the university. I mean, they had about 200 highly experienced semiconductor production experts on the other side of the table. They say, well, forget it. You won't find anything in our data that we haven't thought about. Yeah? We are the experts here on the world level, how to do this. Yeah? We don't know what you're doing here, who brought you in here, why you are imagining you could help us. Well, it took them 2 days with the data, with just elementary AI mechanisms to find parameters in the historic data that showed if you tweak here and tweak there, then the yield will go up significantly. The engineer said, that's impossible. It's contradictory to our experience. That can't be, but the data proved that it's like that. So please, if we talk about organizations that are not ready without external help, start with AI. We're not talking, about companies that are not good in what they're doing, and that don't have engineering skills and expertise and are extremely good in doing this in other fields. It may apply to everybody. So, and coming back to what can be done to help. So, who was in Davos' presentation about the AI ops this morning? Yeah, Robert, I saw you. Okay, not many. So, what they did in the project for the Croatian Telecom, to use IT logs and IT operational data to identify problems and automatically start remedies, or at least alert that there are problems. They not just built some prototypish thing, but they also did this methodology-wise good thing about building a platform based on open source that is doing everything around this, what data did I use? What test data do I have? Where does it come from? And having this retraining and redeployment cycles, those model ops things that you should do if you really and seriously do AI, not for a one-time analysis, but for something that is running continuously as part of your applications or your business to deliver value. So there is a way to get to such, well, both best practice experiences and platforms in comparison to just having a bunch of open source tools. And this is also something of what the Cross AI team are offering. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand, and it's a good point, because what you said is that we as a university, we are not focusing on developing a platform or helping them to implement these things in regular operations, because that's not our goal, not our task, and that's also not allowed to some extent, because we get money from the state. We cannot kind of compete, and we should not compete with private companies that do exactly that, like you are doing. So that's the next step. So yeah, yes, one step earlier, we help the companies to find the use case, to do some experimental implementation, trying to analyze if it works at all, if it has a benefit, if it could have a benefit, if it gives some new insights, things like that. And then, of course, when it comes to the point that you say, okay, now we know it works, obviously it would be beneficial for us to have it in a daily operation, then of course, typically IT suppliers and IT service companies step in, because they have to do it and also maintain it then in the long run, which is not our task, not our capability, because we don't have the resources for that. So this is where, let's say, research then hands over to industry to some extent. And so we are even one stage earlier, and then if you have it already in a shape that you can say, okay, we know it works, and we have to make it run in everyday life now, then you could think about these models like DevOps and platforms and so on. Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You said that you are helping companies find this.
Yeah.
Are you using any specific methodology for that? Kind of boost the recognition of those use cases that might be solved using AI?
Sometimes, I would say, sometimes it's only discussion, but we also started to do real workshops using some kind of design thinking methodology, or as this AI canvas approach. But I think it's more about discussion, because usually the companies have some kind of idea, but it's maybe not mature, not really thought about. It differs, but it depends on the context how we do it. It's not, we don't have a standard methodology. That would be easy. There is no standard methodology. It's like we're not a consulting company that comes with a one size fits all methodology and just does it. But it's more about, sometimes even the finding out the thing could be a research project on its own, analyzing the state of the art in a certain field or something. So it depends. Yes, great. Yes.
Your clients, your customers, you mentioned the problems with data privacy, stuff like this. What is the typical client to be like? What kind of mentality? There are some topics on your map that are still under discussion from the previous side and also from the science side. So
yes.
I guess it has to be some entrepreneurial spirit that has to be there, and
Yeah.
some risk-taking ability from the back side.
I think it's those companies that have some, let's say, entrepreneurial spirit in the management, and also in this IT part, or sometimes it's even the CEO who is driving that. Depends on the size and the mentality. But you're right. So I mean, the financial risk of working with others in university is limited because there's public funding and there are many opportunities to limit the amount of money. But that's also the big advantage. We are comparably cheap as an entry level exercise, so we can explore that and see if it. So the risk is limited, but you need, of course, the mentality to do it at all, to work with the university, to think about it at all, to have some ideas, and to be curious. So all these things that you would associate with kind of entrepreneurial behavior. That's not, unfortunately, that's not always the case even for company owners, that they, especially if they might be in the second, third generation, they are not really entrepreneurs anymore. They're managers, so they just manage what they have, and they are not really interested. So it depends extremely on the responsible people and the spirit that they have. And only with those who aren't curious and pushy and so on, they are interested in doing that. We do not have a lot of kind of stock market companies there. I mean, of course, we have also stock market companies in the region, but they are not our main clients. And usually they have their own people for doing that, or their own stuff. They're not asking for help. They are not what the companies we are talking to the smaller ones mainly, that are maybe hidden champions, market leaders in some niche that you could not imagine as a normal person before you talk to them. But then you see, okay, this is the largest manufacturer of whatever that you don't have thought about, and but they are very good and technology advanced in their niche, and that's what Joachim said. They are extremely good in engineering, usually doing their thing, but they very often have let's say problems with digitalization, with the digital part, with the computer science part, because in the past IT for them was just the Windows PC in the office or something like that. So it's more, or the SAP system. So they don't consider IT as a strategic thing so far, and that's the big change that has to come. That they think about also about, as you can see here, Internet of Things, or industrial Internet of Things, the connection of machines and the sensors and so on. These are things that are usually still in the early stage. Yes, thanks a lot for attending. Thanks a lot for your patience and listening.